Continuing with health news, but some different health news. We're now talking about a new diabetes drug. It has shown the capability of reversing diabetes in rodents. At least that's what has been shown so far. And now it is ready to be trialed in humans. Joining me to talk more about this is Dr. Tom Elliott, the medical director with BC Diabetes. Dr. Elliott, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jill. Well, these are very, very exciting times.
Absolutely. So what are we talking about specifically, type 2 diabetes, or what is this all about?
Well, Jill, what's happened is a company in Redwood, California called Biomea Fusion has engineered a drug that's got a name. It's called BMF 219, and it makes the cells that produce insulin, called beta cells, it makes them grow. And it makes them grow in rats and mice. It makes them grow in people with type 2 diabetes in a short study that's been completed. And now they have two clinical trials that BC Diabetes is involved in that are testing whether it can make the beta cells grow back in human diabetes. And if it can make the beta cells grow back, then it potentially means that diabetes can be reversed in humans as well. So that's the outline, and it's highly experimental. There's no guarantees, of course, but we are looking for people with type 2 diabetes who've had it less than 7 years, who aren't taking insulin, and people with type 1 diabetes who've had it less than 15 years. Those are the kind of people we would love to hear from, Jill.
And when if somebody hears this and they're interested or is considering taking part, what kind of things do you have to consider as far as what goes into being in a study like this, and even say potential side effects?
Thank you. So apart from the what I mentioned, type 2 less than 7 years, not on insulin, they would have to be in generally good health. They couldn't be severely overweight. They couldn't be on meds for ADD, that sort of thing. And in type 1 diabetes, they couldn't be on Ozempic and drugs like that. In terms of the odds, in the type 2 diabetes study, they would have a 75% chance of getting the real thing and a 25% chance of getting a placebo. In the type 1 study, 100% of them would get the real thing. And in terms of side effects, nothing has been shown to date. About 100 humans have gotten this drug, and some very minor abnormalities in liver enzymes have been shown, but nothing of concern.
And when you talk about the requirement, though, that with type 2 diagnosed within the last 7 years, not on insulin, type 1, not on things like Ozempic, are there a lot of people that would be in that scenario that you have either type 1 or type 2 diabetes and you're not getting those treatments or those drugs?
Oh, yeah. There are probably tens of thousands of people out there. It is, and not everybody wants to do a clinical trial with a drug that really hasn't been used by a lot of humans. And, we understand that this is not for everybody, but anybody that's interested could contact our clinic and we would give them some more information. It does involve 12 monthly visits. Each visit would be 4 hours. You'd be hooked up to an IV. So, it's a pretty big commitment, but we do pay for, time and travel and that sort of thing.
Do they have to be in any specific part of the province?
The sponsor will, within reason, will fly them in for this study. So the sponsor is covering those sorts of things.
And when we talk about treatments for diabetes, you mentioned Ozempic, which I think is a drug a lot of people have heard about, maybe not because of what it does if you have diabetes, but more as a weight control drug. But is it something, whereas this sounds like a pretty big breakthrough in a disease or a condition that has been around for a long time and so many people are living with it and dealing with it?
Yeah, Jill, it's early days. If this, once this study is complete, which it will be in, let's say, 2 years from now, if it's completed and it shows positive results, then it'll be an extremely big deal. And that's part of the fun and excitement for me running a diabetes center, where we have new and different treatments that we can offer patients. And there's a chance it's not going to show benefit, and either way, we're going to move on. But it's through clinical trials like this that we do get advances in science.
And is that part of the trying to encourage people to take part in this, aside from the time commitment, the 12 monthly visits of 4 hours, like you said, 4 hours on an IV? Is that part of the having to kind of convince people that I mean, if we didn't have people that took part in clinical trials, a lot of things wouldn't be discovered and there wouldn't be the research. So is that kind of part of the argument as to why people, if you're okay with doing this, why you should do this?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jill. A lot of people do clinical trials because they hope to get a benefit, and there is a good chance there'll be a benefit. Some people do clinical trials because they think they're going to get looked after better, and I sure hope that we do look after people who do clinical trials. And there's a third category of people who are do-gooders. That it's altruism. They're doing it because they want to give back. A lot of retired people do clinical trials, people with time on their hands. So there is a feel-good factor that you're contributing to scientific advancement.
And when you mentioned, too, with the people that are taking part in this for type 2, that there's I think you said a 25% chance that you would get the placebo. But for the type 1 diabetes participants, it's 100% chance that you're getting the actual treatment. How is that possible, given I thought they had to have a certain amount of people that were getting the placebo?
Jill, you're so knowledgeable. So in the type 1 study, the first 40 will get open label. They all get the drug. Then once we've recruited 40, there is a study with 150 people, of whom 1/3 will get a placebo. So, yes, eventually people in this study will be subjected to the odds of getting a placebo. And you're right, without a placebo, you don't know whether... If you get a good outcome and you don't have a placebo, you don't know whether it was just due to chance,
right,
or whether it was due to the action of the drug. That's right. In type 1 diabetes, Jill, it's a bit of a long shot. People, the current understanding is the cause of type 1 diabetes is that the beta cells have been destroyed by the immune system, and that once they're destroyed, they're never coming back. But we now know that some of the cells don't get destroyed, so they're hanging around. And if this investigational drug BMF 219 does what we think it does, then it can potentially grow them back and help reduce their insulin requirement. And in our wildest dreams, of course, get them off insulin completely.
Dr. Elliott, what should people do if they themselves are interested in learning more about this? Maybe they have a family member or a friend that they think might be interested. Where can they go to learn more?
I recommend they send an email to questions@bcdiabetes.ca. They could also call the switchboard number, which is 604-683-3734. questions@bcdiabetes.ca. or that phone number, 604-683-3734.
All right. Well, Dr. Elliott, thank you so much for doing this and for joining the show to talk more about this. Very exciting research indeed. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks a lot, Jill. Bye.
That is Dr. Tom Elliott, Medical Director with BC Diabetes. Well, keeping with a bit of a healthcare